with us Mrs. Suruchi Sumi. I would say that she's a change maker.
Change maker, I don't know whether I should call myself that or not, but if you give the right kind of foundation, it helps in the long run.
Right. When I was in school, history was somehow a subject I dreaded.
Children read today, they don't read as much. Amar Chitra Katha, I think it worked better than history books.
Absolutely.
A lot of times.
Absolutely. I stand corrected. I wouldn't say inclusive education anymore. I'll use equal opportunity.
Learning is not just getting a degree, learning is learning smaller things.
Absolutely, yeah.
You can train teachers to be teachers, but the first thing they learn to be is empathetic.
Yeah.
Not sympathy, but empathy is the first thing they need to learn.
Hello, everybody. We have with us Mrs. Suruchi Sumi. I would say that she's a change maker. She intends to bring about change from the very roots of our being, and that starts from school. So I would love ma'am to introduce herself to all our viewers.
Change maker, I don't know whether I should call myself that or not, but yes, we believe that if you give them the right education at the beginning of when they start to learn, not that learning starts from a school, it starts way before that, but if you give the right kind of foundation, it helps in the long run.
Right.
And children get to learn better.
Yeah.
They are able to adapt to changes better. So that's the kind of thing it is.
Yeah.
I have been in education line for last 15 years. So it is not something that I initially trained for. I trained to be somewhere else and I did various other things before I ended up being here. But I think this is something I ended up loving so much that I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
We're trying to work on a regular basis. On a day-to-day basis, we try and implement new ideas, new ways, try and include whatever we can to help children learn better. I wouldn't say teach, but learn better, because that's what we have been doing.
Right.
We've always maintained that with us, children learn and not, we don't teach, because teaching is very easy. I can come and say, learn, this is A, this is B, this is C.
Yeah.
But learning is something that they do more on their own, and we help them. It's assisted learning.
Yeah.
It's assisted learning, actually. You assess them to learn rather than teaching them. Yes, you obviously tell them things because they're younger kids, they're babies.
Yeah.
But unless you let them also explore on their own, it never happens. You have to give them that kind of framework in terms of learning, in terms of give them that kind of environment, those teaching aids, help that they need. Keep talking to them. That's how they learn to do things on their own, pick up things on their own, in the sense, how do I take it forward? And they start putting things together. So that's what we try and do. So that's where it comes from. So this is what we are doing.
Not a lot of teachers or elders like us think that way, and maybe we are doing this episode because we want them to understand what teaching should be, or what as elders our responsibilities are. It's not just teaching, it's assisted.
It's a learning process. Nothing. See, when we learned, we were told, write this, ye likhte jao, and we would just copyright, and that's how still a lot of schools and preschools do. I'm not saying we are the only ones doing the way we are working. Loads of schools are doing this, but parents, I don't think they realize that how important that difference is. It's not that we are the only ones doing, but parents look at it, नर्सरी में तो जा रहा है, क्या करने वाला है? प्ले स्कूल में तो बच्ची हमारी जा रही है, क्या करेगी? खेलने तो आ रही है। पर खेलते खेलते how much a child can learn, no one realizes. खेलने जा रही है. Government also has now finally recognized and said, okay, implement play way of learning. But that is how, if you learn, then you remember and you are able to implement so much later in your life. So I learn it in nursery and I forget it by first grade. It's of no use. So I learn it through a story, or by just trying to find some example out of things, or by doing things. So I learn it, I remember it better. If I'm adding, so I'm doing it as a story, or I'm subtracting, I'm doing it as a story, saying, I give you so many and I give you 5 pieces and I take few. So how many are left? So I'll remember because I'm thinking. I'm not just doing, okay, let's do backward counting, forward counting, and I've reached there or cut those many
lines.
It's not that you don't need that, you need that plus the way of explanation. If I think math or science was explained, and today when you look back, or even history, very, very important subject, loads of children don't like it because the way we are just doing rote learning. If we make it into a story, how things happened, I think children will be more interested.
That is very true. That is very true.
When children read today, they don't read as much. Amar Chitra Katha, I think it worked better than history books.
Absolutely.
A lot of times.
Absolutely.
So why? Because it was a story. It was the same thing which we learned in our textbooks. But the story was visual.
Yes.
And I think today's kids are more visual learning. Visual is not necessarily a screen. Visual is a lot of visual
lot of
stimulus that you can give. Sensory learning. So it's not just by touch, feel, look. And looking is not just looking on a slate and chalk or board and your notebook. Looking is also by looking at things around you, trying to find things around you. I think it works.
That's true. Even I remember as when you said history, even during when I was in school, history was somehow a subject I dreaded.
Most of the children.
Yeah,
even
because
today I think history is a subject a lot of children don't like.
I mean, who is whose son, who is whose daughter, who came where, when. It was
difficult.
It was very difficult, and you have to just mug it up.
So
without.
Instead, if we did it as a story, saying, okay, this happened so many years ago.
That's true.
Look at what all did they do. You would well remember what all did they do.
Yes, absolutely.
With younger or older. The more we do it, and now with NEP 2020 getting implemented, it will make a difference, definitely, because it's more focused on skill, more focused on learning, not just by rote, but by doing things and learning in a different way. So it'll help. That's how we are also hoping our children, we have been doing it for years now. Last at least out of the 15 years, I think all 15, most of the time we have done, our children have learned in this fashion.
Okay.
So they have learned the classrooms, playgroup classroom has an empty space. You can run around, you can roll around, you can do things. It's okay to run around. The babies. If they run around and then they learn to count, I think that's a wonderful thing.
That is true.
While they are playing and they learn to count, I think it's a wonderful thing than rather trying to say this is 5 and this is how you count 5.
True. So, ma'am, as you said, for the last 15 years, you have been doing this. Maybe we could go back a little bit and understand your career.
Career-wise, I learned advertising and public relations management. But the first job we did, it was more of design sales. And then I moved to a small advertising agency for a few years. Liked advertising, but wasn't very happy doing it. So I moved to market research.
Okay.
So basically, I have skipped from one, but they were all related. Then from there, I moved to retail.
Okay.
So I did retail for 7 years, 2 years on a vendor side, and 5 years with a chain of stores.
Okay.
Where I was actually doing one part of their business. I was a buyer and a team leader for one part of the business. So I did that for 5 years. And then I think various things happened. I was on a sabbatical, was thinking where to go back to do the same thing or do something similar but different. And somewhere an opportunity came up and I was also looking for a daycare for my daughter.
Okay.
So I started looking around and someone came up with this key. Someone is running a preschool. Let's go and look out. We checked it out, liked the concept. Since I was free at that time, free in the sense I was in between things. And I had been in between things for about 6 months by then. So let's try it out, set it up, and we will take a call.
Right.
Someone can run and we can go back. So my daughter also got a daycare. She was a little older than when we started. So she never went to our school. She started our daycare. And we started with 2 classes, the youngest 2 classes, playgroup and nursery. And I think while first few years were a lot of struggle, we learned, we took a franchisee of one of the leading brands at that time. They trained us, and they trained us beautifully. Again, the new age education, which we are now trying to implement. Government is now trying to tell, but we have been doing it ever since because we were trained very well. So first 2 years, 2.5, 3 years went in learning all of that. And before I could think of doing something else and passing it on to the coordinator who could have run it, the brand was selling itself to another brand which we didn't want. So somewhere we negotiated and got out of it, saying we will run our own brand. So 2013, we started our own brand. And I think that's when, again, the work started from scratch. And then I really liked it because till then we were supplied with a lot of things. We were only learning how to manage it. So that's where a lot of creative work started, because you had to work on a curriculum, you had to work on, and when you are already at a certain level, because we were doing so much more than anyone else was doing. And so it was only going upwards and not going downwards. So then fill up the gaps wherever we felt, because we had done it for 3 years. So we felt there were few things we could add more. So now we had the liberty to do whatever we wanted and take it from there. And I think at that time, the parents who were there, they were very supportive, because we told them, we gathered and we said, now the brand is no more, but we are the same people, and we'll try to go upwards and not downwards. And there were a couple of parents who had children stayed. They had both had two daughters, and both the daughters studied with us, stayed in daycare for years. Not 1 year, 2 years, but good 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Wow. The older ones. So that kind. So they were, and that time they had only one child each. And they were the ones who said, we came for a brand name, but we stayed back because the way you handled the children. So that gave us, and even that day, none of the parents said we want to withdraw. We said, if you want to withdraw, we'll give you 2 days, withdraw. Or let us run it. And no one withdrew, and that gave us a confidence. Obviously, we were very small at that time. So we have grown with time. Good years, bad years. But recognition is there. People remember, children remember. When, like last week, someone came to meet me and said, my cousin's son studied with you, and they live very far away from where we are. But we are planning to move to this area so that our daughter can go to the same place. Because I think this is where he learned to love the books. He learned to love what he is doing. Those kind of things, like, it comes. This is the latest snippet that came in, but there are parents who come from far away. Because the older one came to us and they felt, or a cousin came to us and they felt, this is where the younger one should also go. So those are the kind of things that help. So I think that makes a difference.
It does, yes. And as you said, people came in for a brand and they stuck with you because you added some value to them. That
I think so, because we were at that time, we were also learning. I'll be very honest. 3 years, you don't learn to suddenly start running a place and teaching, which you've never done, but you're learning with time. And we learned to manage because we were trained very well. The way they taught us how to handle kids, how to go about, the curriculum was wonderful. So we had to take it from there. Obviously, over the years, we have evolved and changed and done things. But that's when the actual creative work started. And creative work in a preschool, people think is putting up the posters and all. Actually, no, that's the easier part. Children, after a point, even if you print something and put, they're happy with it. The creative part is how you keep them occupied, how you engage them, and how you ensure that they don't get bored, because their attention span is really small. 5 minutes, 2-year-olds, they get bored. Unless they're doing something like watching television. So we are a zero screen place also. So older children, yes, junior and senior, for certain parts, they look at things. But we try for younger ones, because we feel that today's children, there's a lot of exposure of screen. Earlier days we had screen, but as of today, after COVID especially, a little before COVID also, I think phones became too common. So everyone could scroll. And now scrolling is, I think all kids know, even when they're like few months old. Know how to just go swipe.
Absolutely, yes.
So that is something to know. So I think they're already doing a lot of screens. So we can do that 2.5 hours there with us. Without screen, no issues, because they can do so much more. It's not that they're not learning.
Right.
So why do you need a screen to show a lion? Lion screen, maybe it will not be the real one.
Yeah.
तो आप लाइन की फोटो दिखा दो तो भी बहुत अच्छा है.
हाँ, that is true.
And if you really want to show them something, you can send out those YouTube links or video link to parents at home and say आप घर पे जब आप टीवी देखने का बच्चे का टाइम हो उस वक्त आप चला दो. I think that works well. You don't need more than that. Classrooms for those 2.5 hours, let them be free, run around, do what they want, and also learn while doing all of that.
Yeah. Since you said no screen, that's a very interesting thing, because a lot of schools nowadays are going back to teaching everything on screen. But as you said, like, they're kids, they need to touch, they need to feel, they need to run around. So this mindset of parents, like, telling them it's okay not to have their children be with the screens for 2.5 hours. So how did you educate parents?
I think now parents are also aware to some extent.
Okay.
2 years ago, that wasn't the case. And before that, people would wonder why no screen. And you had to explain, at least for playgroup and nursery, all they are learning is A to Z, or a 1 to 10, or certain colors, certain numbers, certain shapes. Those can actually be shown physically. So if you have to show a circle, there are lots of circle things that you can do. You can draw, let them draw. I think that's more interesting. Let them stamp, let them make those. It's more interesting. Or you want to teach numeral. Say, I want to learn the number 5. I can show 5, written 5. I can draw 5 objects. I can put things on the floor, printed objects, printed things, ask them to count. I think that's more fun because I'm playing a game. Let's jump 5 times. Let's pick up 5 objects. Let's pick up only red things. Do a treasure hunt. Looking it on screen, beyond that, rhymes can be heard. It's an auditory thing, not a visual thing. So why do I need to see a cartoon for a rhyme?
That's true. And if you enact a rhyme and you
you
sing it,
use
it's
puppets,
fun.
you use a shadow theater, you use puppets, you just do actions. Someday do action, someday use a shadow theater, someday use regular puppets. Stories you can do through puppets. Draw the story on the board and let them go through that story. Ask them to give answers to that story. I think that works so much more. That, and yes, older ones for some things, sometimes, not all the times, things that you really can't show by. So some videos occasionally is needed. That too, not on a daily basis. They start learning sounds. Sound is something that you hear, not see. So if I see, the focus goes away. When I hear and when I'm doing it, because when I'm looking it on a screen, you're actually using all your sense, obviously auditory and visual both. But because the visual is so fascinating,
So appealing,
look at us when we are actually, there are days we are scrolling. Sometimes you don't realize that you have done it for 2 hours.
True.
So why do we blame children? It's so fascinating, fascinating, so many colors. Lovely sounds coming in, music playing. So it's a very fascinating thing. So why unnecessarily get into that? I can do, because it's very small, short duration that they come to a school. Unless you're in a Montessori setup, and there are these Montessori, they do 4 hours of schooling. And even there, they're allowed to do what they want. They actually train themselves. If you are in a Montessori setup, it's even better. But yeah, it's a difficult setup to run on a regular basis, because as Indians, we are actually, I think, conditioned to learn in a certain way. To change that conditioning itself for us also, it has taken, even now, a lot of parents don't understand it. That why you don't need to write, because we come, there are people who come and say, wo school mein they're writing. Our child is not writing. But they haven't reached that age to write. Their fingers are not ready, the pincher is not ready. How do they write? But because the next school is
doing
writing,
it. Yeah.
that becomes the most important thing. And you have to keep explaining to them that that is the last thing they need to learn, because that's an acquired skill.
True.
Listening, speaking, those are natural things that you learn. Yes, speaking also you learn only by listening to others,
Yeah.
but it comes from within.
Yeah.
But writing or reading, reading is also, a lot of it is visual. It's not just your sounds. Reading is visual and auditory both.
Right.
But writing is somewhere where you're using a lot of your muscles which probably are not developed.
Yeah.
You start with writing from here, then you move to your elbow, then you move to your wrist,
Yeah.
and only then you reach your pincher.
Yeah.
So to reach that level and you start writing and filling up books, I don't
Yeah.
think it's the. What do you do with that writing? Yes, I can write 1 to 100 or whatever the school has taught me. But if there's something new coming up, how do I learn it?
Yeah. Yeah.
If I am not able to relate it to something else that I'm looking at.
Yeah.
So if I do say a color and I say, okay, let's find and let's think what else is yellow. Go home today and see what else is yellow and come back.
Yeah.
Do you think what else can be yellow? If you look outside, they start imagining.
Yeah.
I'm just writing the spelling of yellow or just coloring yellow. Yes, we do that also. I'm
Yeah.
not saying you shouldn't do that.
Absolutely.
But I'm not letting the child use their brain to the fullest.
Yeah.
Let them explore. I think exploring, and some parents today's age, because they'll watch a lot of Instagram videos, I guess, and say sensory education, sensory aap kya karte ho? But the whole learning is sensory.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can't really explain to them that what you see there is one curated thing.
Yeah.
The whole day is a sensory
Yeah.
experience for a child, because that's how they're learning. Yeah, little bit. There are times they're doing their worksheet because that's also fun for them.
Yeah.
Because for them they're coloring. But your sensory activity starts. Sensory is not just touch and feel. Sensory is also auditory.
Yeah.
It's also visual.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not just touching. So it's taking time, but I think now parents are more aware because
Yeah.
a lot of things. But there's still, again,
A long way to go.
play group hi to hai, nursery to hai. By junior senior they start getting more serious. They also go to, a lot of times they go to bigger schools. So some of them, they know how to take care, so they do it. But a lot of schools are still following the old patterns. We're hoping with this NEP getting implemented,
Yeah.
a lot, not everything will still get streamlined, but a lot of it should get streamlined, at least for slightly older children.
Yeah.
I'm not very sure how much it will get streamlined for very young ones, but hopefully that time will also happen. A lot of places it will help with the new guidelines in place. It is going to help children more than anything else.
Yeah.
Parents are going to take slightly longer. Children adapt.
Yeah.
Parents don't understand, so they don't adapt.
Yeah.
So its problem is more with the older a lot than with the babies. Children are ready to learn whatever you help them learn.
Yeah. Because elders are already conditioned.
Yeah, we are conditioned to do so. That's why I said in India, there's a lovely way of learning, Montessori learning. There are very few schools who do that.
Yeah.
Because parents don't understand कि उनको तो आप कुछ पढ़ा ही नहीं रहे हो, तो फिर क्या कर रहा है बच्चा?
Yeah.
बच्चा तो कुछ कर ही नहीं रहा है, बच्चा सिर्फ जाता है और कुछ कुछ कर कर आ जाता है. But they do not understand that it's all assisted by a teacher.
Yeah.
Where they're doing so much more, they're becoming independent, they're doing things on their own. So it is a difficult thing. Yeah. So our kind of places, which is a mix of Playway and Montessori, we are slightly better off because at least they feel कि हाँ कुछ worksheet कर रहा है बच्चा, कुछ तो कर आ रहा है. Yeah. Because those are not tangible things that you can actually. Right. The experiences you cannot document.
Exactly. That's very true. Yes.
You can only document ये worksheet किया, ये किया, but आप ये क्यों करते हैं?
Yeah.
Those you can't document. But when you start looking at when the teacher is observing a child, teacher is actually filling out pages. That is where the difference comes in, and that is where school's role is, because वो A to Z के लिए आपको school भेजने की जरूरत नहीं.
Yeah, that is true.
Older children, yes, when they go to kindergarten, a lot more gets added. Again, in kindergarten, one way to learn is only write and read and write, read and write, read and write. Read is more rote. Or the other way is to try reading more, writing also. Obviously, that's something you start learning to write. If you reach a Montessori or an international curriculum, you're actually writing in first grade. not before that.
Yeah.
But here, okay, you start writing in junior or senior, you're actually ready to write by then because you would have done so many patterns by then, so many things by then that you're ready to like. Despite that, children cry. Why am I doing so much? Because suddenly from playing, you're actually using some of your muscles which you had never used.
Right.
So you have to learn to write. You have to. So it's a skill that requires a lot of patience from everywhere. So the younger you do it, the more difficult it is.
Yeah.
Older you do it, it's more like another thing that they are doing.
Yeah. True. True.
One more thing to do as we grow up.
Yeah.
So it's the choices as parents on us, or just say school ne kuch sikhaya nahi.
Yeah.
So a lot of times that happens. कुछ
Yeah.
सिखाया नहीं,
Because
लिखना तो आता ही नहीं है.
people measure education in things
That's
that
what
are
I'm
that
saying,
tangible.
because they can't measure it, so
Yeah.
they don't understand. But when parents come back and say, when my child actually is aware of so many things that we didn't know of, so that is where that kind of you feel that okay, you're doing something that can be not really measured, but can be understood and can be seen. That's the difference between a Montessori education and your regular education, where they say child learns at his or her own pace. So if you mix that, because you can't do it wholly in our kind of setup, so if you mix that with playway and let the child learn and don't compare to the next child. Oh, you know little more than your child knows little more than mine. So there's something wrong with my child.
Yeah.
Maybe your child knows something which is not measurable in those terms. That I don't know my A to Z, but I color better.
Yeah.
Maybe I can think better when I imagine more.
Yeah.
Maybe I sing better. So that kind of thing.
Okay, ma'am. So we would love to understand the curriculum, the regular curriculum of your school. Like, how does a day in your school look like?
We try and incorporate both playway and Montessori method, where Montessori method says let the child learn at their own pace, and the playway method, like what government is also now saying, because earlier the education system only took first to 12th as the under their school curriculum. Now they have included the younger children also, nursery onwards. So they also say play. So we do play and Montessori, where we say learning at their own pace, yet keeping in mind the play thing. And so in a day, the child, any child who comes to us, whether they are in pre-kindergarten or kindergarten, they go through an array of things.
Okay.
So they have motor activities where we work on their fine and gross motor. So we work on their pincher and wrist movement. We also work on their whole bodily movement. Then we have communication building activities where they would have also helps in speaking skills, listening and speaking skills activity, where we have something called circle time, rhyme time, story time, a discussion time. So that also helps them in thinking process. Obviously, learning is part of the day. So you have a small part dedicated when they are pre-kindergarten. That part is not beyond 10 minutes or so, where they would learn about whatever they are learning, whether they're learning some letters of the alphabet or they're learning some Hindi letters of Hindi Varnmala or some numerals or some colors, some shape, or their EVS part where they're learning some animal, fruit, bird, whatever. So that is 10, maybe 8 to 10 minutes of the day. But that is repeated somewhere else where it is part of a motor activity or part of their language building activity or part of the listening and speaking skills. So it could be a story related to, say, the birds they are learning. Or a language building activity could be a story in Hindi where you're adding Hindi as the language that they should be learning. Also, the language of instruction, as it should be, is the mother tongue or Hindi, and as the language that they're learning is English. So it's both are happening together. Once a week, we have people coming from outside doing sports activities with them, where again it's a gross motor activity, but it also helps children understand what a game is. So not that they become cricketers after playing cricket for a few days, but they know this is a bat, this is a ball, these are stumps. Cricketers watched in a lot of homes, so that's not the right. But a tennis or a basketball, so they learn to handle. So obviously it's a gross motor and handling things, activity, physical development activity, but also a different way of doing it. Once a week we do it differently. Then they have their regular mandatory art, craft, coloring. That's a very small part of the day. You don't need to do art and craft every day. Because end of the day, the more fancy craft you do, art, still you can let children do. The fancier craft you do, it is done more by teachers, less by children. So I can try and showcase fancy craft, or I can showcase what they're learning. So when we do our annual exhibition, it is more about what we have learned. It's not about how beautiful my craft is. Yes, craft is part of it, because you are a preschool, it will be part of it. That's a small part of it. But what I'm learning, how I am communicating, how I am expressing myself as a child is what is more important. So we feel that the child needs to have all kinds of exposure given to them, different stimulus given to them. If I keep them, give them different kind of environment or different change activities on a daily basis. So we try and change, no activity is repeated on a daily basis. We try and change it once in a week or once in 7-8 days also, depending on the activity. So if I have colored on the easel on a day, because it's a fine motor activity also, I learned to how to move my hand. That easel activity will not happen immediately on the next day or the third day or the fourth day. Because as a child, I'll remember that it's too boring to do things every day. Unless I am playing with my favorite toy, everything else gets boring. So again, social development, emotional development, how I interact with others, which is not just your friends or peer group, it is also elders. It is your support staff, how I interact with maybe people who are helping us. So all of that is part of it. As a regular parent who's seen kids around or old khud ka experience, when I come, I want my child to learn my alphabet, so ABCs, some numerals, shapes, colors, birds, and so on. But those you can do at home or any regular. When you have come to school, those will happen automatically. But that's the difference between a school and a good school. A school will make sure all of this is done. Every school will do it. Whether you go to an Anganwadi to the best school. And I'm not even saying we are right at the top. We are trying our level best to do whatever best we can from what resources we have, what kind of opportunities we have. But a good school will ensure that the child just doesn't learn them as regular as I'm supposed to learn, but I learn it in a way that I remember even after 2 years. I don't forget it 2 months down the line. So that's the most important thing. So it's, as I said earlier, assisted learning and teaching, that's the small difference. Teaching is when I ensure everything is done. Assisted learning is when I say, oh, I have done this, but can my child also do it differently? Like I read somewhere, education is much more than just syllabus. Yeah, exactly. So curriculum, when you asked me what is in your curriculum, it is not just learning your ABCs. Or whatever you want to learn. It is also about so many other things. Absolutely. Emotional development, social development, your basic interactions, some morals that should come in life, basic hygiene factor, how to live independently, how to do things independently, all of that. Yes. So, ma'am, so moving on to the next segment, we know Happy Bee has a very inclusive culture, and we would love to learn how you implement that and what are the steps you take to do that. See, inclusive learning is not something that you should be using or anyone should be using, because learning is for everyone. We feel it is for everyone. We are not special educators. We always tell parents, we try and take children, even see, a lot of schools don't want to take children with autism or who are very hyperactive. At that age that we take children, anyways, you can't label them. You shouldn't be labeling them, but whatever labels you want to add, they can all be done only when the child turns 8. Oh, okay. So not before that. The first testing can happen only at 8. So before that, yes, there are children who are hyperactive. With time, that goes down. There are children with ADHD,
Yeah.
ADHD. There are children with ADD. All of that is there, and there are lots of adults also who have all of that.
Yeah.
Alia Bhatt, I think, in
She
few days
talked
ago,
about it.
she talked about ADHD.
Yeah.
So once a celebrity talks about it, becomes more normal.
Yeah.
But that is something which is there in a lot of
Yes.
adults also.
Yeah.
But the moment a child is jumping around or doing something, and you say the child needs a shadow teacher, the child needs to go for all kinds of therapy, rather than first putting the child in a school and trying to see how that school environment
Yeah.
is helping him to a certain extent, and then add on therapies. Post COVID, a lot of children, when they came back to the school, were hyperactive. Yes, wouldn't sit in one place, wouldn't want to do anything beyond that, because I think it was also a lot of screen till that time.
Yeah.
With time, and it didn't go away immediately. With time, took some time. Now, last year and a half, children 2 and 3 year olds, when they're coming, you can see the difference from the earlier few matches when they came in. Because at that time, I think it became a norm where children, their attention was either on the screen while they were looking at it, or a large screen or a small screen. So they did not, and because parents are also busy, no one was talking at home as much as required.
Yeah.
They were not going out to play. So it made a difference. On a regular basis, if you look today, the child goes out to play, child goes for outings, even if it's going out to eat,
Yeah.
or it's going to a park or to a mall, to wherever. So they're doing things and they're listening to things. People are asking them questions, they're answering them. You're doing their social visits, relatives visit, you're going to your grandparents' places, you're going to other relatives' places, even in the city or moving around and meeting people.
Yeah.
It matters.
Yeah.
But if I wasn't doing all of that for, say, almost a year and more, and I'm just a 2 year old, I have not learned to talk because probably I wasn't spoken to enough.
Yeah.
And when they came back to regular schooling, and it's not our school or any, wherever they went back
Yeah.
to, things started normalizing. And it has taken good 2 years for them to now be able to do it. Some of those kids did need a lot of working on them. Not all of it was required to be at a therapist's place.
Yeah.
If you are at a school which provides you with all kinds of inputs in terms of physical development, which is fine and gross motor, language and language, so where you're talking and you're listening and speaking skills, rather language development comes later. Listening and speaking skills, that happens only if conversations happen.
Yeah.
In form of stories, in form of general question answer, in form of a circle time, all of that. And then you build on to language skills where you're learning your A's and B's and A's and I and all of that. So all of that you do. So it makes a difference. It's not that we did it now. This was, I think, many years ago. And we had been reading that all kinds of children, if they're given spaces where they can mix up with regular normal children, they'll learn better, they're able to heal faster. So first time we got a special child, I think it was many years ago, before 2013. So early first 2 years maybe we got the first one. The child had cerebral palsy, and we have had no experience how to deal with the child. Mother would take him for therapies and everything, and obviously that child couldn't sit straight, couldn't do. So we had cushions all around him.
Okay.
Initially the mother sat, then because he could sit in a hunched manner, but somehow managed. And he was there with us for almost 1.5, 2 years. He started doing things, small things where we had to help. ADHD and all, we don't even look at because there are a lot of children who are hyper.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say ADHD. Autistic children, we started getting way later, I think after 15, 16. By then, parents started. We have handled a child with Down syndrome.
Yeah.
By the end of the year, he started lovely. He would speak a few sentences. And we are not, none of us are special educators, not me, not my staff, not the teachers we have. But the only thing, and this is what I tell parents also, you can train teachers to be teachers, but the first thing they learn to be is empathetic.
Yeah.
Not sympathy, but empathy is the first thing they need to learn. What I feel, what is the most important trait a teacher needs to have is to have empathy.
Yeah.
Learning to be a teacher, especially for preschoolers, yes, it's one of the most difficult set of kids. Knowledge wise, it doesn't require beyond a certain point.
Yeah.
You learn to be a teacher to learn skills,
Yeah.
not how to do A and B and C's, or learn to make them learn to read, but skills to help them to learn all of that.
Yeah.
Empathy, if it's not there, even if I have hundreds of skills,
Yeah.
if it wouldn't help a child.
Yeah.
We will never be able to comprehend, because if you are not in that child's position or that child's family's position, you'll never be able to relate to that. But I can at least empathize and say, okay, I am with you, I'll try and help you. But also, when children, when they are in, they need help.
Yeah.
And help is not in terms of learning, but emotional support. That requires a little bit of it coming from your heart. That's where a good teacher comes in.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are teachers where children respond to very beautifully. They'll come talk to you softly, say kya ho raha hai, kaise ho raha hai. Or if there are children, while we are talking about children on spectrum or children with physical needs,
Yeah.
especially for them, they are unable to articulate what they require. Other
Yeah.
children, still somewhere you will know with their gestures or with their maybe few words that they're able to speak. But children who are unable to put their thoughts together, if they are on the spectrum, obviously they cannot articulate what they want to say. Children who are hyperactive,
Yeah.
and as they could be labeled ADD, ADHD, whatever later in their life, all you need is a little calm head and people who can deal with it with love, with care, more than anything else. That's what they require. They listen to you.
Yeah.
They'll listen to you if you tell them the same thing very nicely, softly, rather than telling, ye mat karo, aise mat karo, this is how you go about, and just trying to put them from one OT to a speech therapy to everything else.
Yeah.
You're not letting them have that little semblance of real life, for others, what real life is. For them, the life becomes going from one therapist to the other.
Yeah.
And doing things. When I'm dealing with a child, if I take it forward, and that's why, see, I'm at the back end, there are people who are better than me. When I have a team which is better than me while they're dealing with children.
Yeah.
And I let them do it. I cannot say I can do everything.
Yeah.
Because that's not my expertise. So similarly, as human beings, even if we are running a school, my team, I am better dealing with parents, I'm better explaining things to them, I'm better dealing with training the teachers.
Yeah.
But I'm not the best person when it comes to handling children for good 2 hours on a daily basis. I can be happy with them for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, need based half an hour. But I would be happier if someone else does that for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's their expertise.
Yeah.
So, but that doesn't mean that I cannot empathize with the child. So I can try and find ways. If someone from my team is unable to handle, we try and devise things.
Right.
That we say, oh, how do we handle this child who is unable to do things? So we try and devise. And it cannot be done only by me or only by, it's a team effort.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it can only happen if you make it normal.
Yeah.
If you make something being saying your child is different, so cannot do things, that's not being fair to the child or to the parents or the family.
That's true.
See, inclusive is not saying, oh, everyone come to me, but inclusive is in real sense saying, let them do what others are doing. And I'm not saying we can take it to old age. We are not equipped to do that. I'll not say, because we deal with younger children. So we are okay if the child, instead of they leave when they're around 6. So wherever we can help, we try and do that. So I wouldn't say it inclusive. We feel that everyone should have an equal opportunity. Nothing more. I wouldn't call it inclusive. I would call it an equal opportunity space.
Yeah.
Inclusive is the wrong way to deal with it.
Okay.
Everyone gets an opportunity to be in a regular school environment where they're playing, jumping, doing things. Maybe academically they are not at par with the rest, but the rest of it, why can't they do it? So overall, I think it is also because parents are happy about it. And we also always tell that your child is learning to see and accept all kinds of people in their way.
Yeah.
So That is, I think, more important.
Very, yes.
For other children also.
Absolutely.
So it's an equal opportunity space. Everyone comes in. We try and help them for as long as we can. Sometimes you have to tell them, sorry. I wouldn't say we don't say that. Sometimes you have to say, now we can't help you. So we have done that also.
Yeah.
For older children with who are diagnosed much later, parents still call and ask, what should we do next?
Okay.
We help them wherever we can. So because I've heard stories where children have come to us and they've gone to other schools, they were kept in one room, the rest of the class in another room. And I think that's not the right way. Don't take them.
Yeah, yeah.
It's better to say no rather than taking them and then saying, ghar le jao after 15 minutes on a daily basis.
Yeah.
We also tell occasionally ghar le jao because a child that day probably is unmanageable, but that can happen to any child.
Yeah, yeah.
So why single out only them? I have temper tantrums. I cry too much on a day. Children go back for those reasons also. Because those days they are not ready to, and that could be for any reason. They are not able to tell that to you.
Yeah.
I did not like certain thing. A child will behave like a child. I don't like something, so I express it.
Yeah.
So that till then, they are not actually hiding things from you. Feel happy about it, I think. I think we should.
I stand corrected. I wouldn't say inclusive education anymore. I'll use equal opportunity. And I think I'll use that with a lot of things going forward.
I am a human being, born as a human being. I'm behaving like one. There's nothing which is different. So when as a country we say equal opportunity for everyone, we the people of India, when we say we are equal in all ways, so I think we're equal this way also.
Absolutely. Yes.
So it should be an equal. Yes, they need additional help. So children on spectrum, if they can be in a regular, I will not say natural, a regular, what we call regular going space, good. There are times after a point they're unable to, like other things are pushed now and people now find it okay. It should have been okay from day one. Even this should be something I feel made mandatory to schools should not be saying no to children who require additional help.
Okay.
There are schools who don't say that, but there are schools who will not say you on your face because that makes them look bad. But they will covertly say seats full ho gayi, but your child is not coping up or whatever. There are schools who love taking all kinds of children. Yes, they might ask you to get a shadow teacher, but that is required. I can also understand when you have a class of 25, 30, 35, 40, whatever class size, even a regular school, a good school still has at least 30 children in the classroom. It is difficult if a child requires additional help to always hand over from your staff. They can do 1 hour sessions in a day, but on a daily basis you can't. So if there is a shadow teacher, why not? There are schools who take children with a shadow teacher.
Okay.
Shadow teacher is just to help the child, not for the teacher, the main teacher, to leave the child saying, oh teacher, shadow teacher, they sab kuch dekh legi.
Right.
But then the child is in your class. Attached shadow teacher is only to support what you are making them learn, to let them do that as well. So it happens, but I think going forward, what it was earlier, today people are aware.
More aware. Yes.
And awareness levels are higher. Schools are also opening up, even if they want to or not want to, but they also understand that if they don't, somewhere it will hurt them in terms of their reputation. I think it's more to do with that.
And I think even kids who study in the equal opportunity spaces, they are more compassionate when they grow up.
Yeah.
Compassionate.
Yes. But that's why I said empathy is the first thing. How much of it can, and not everything can be taught. Some things happen because children learn the best by observing.
That's true. Yes. Yeah.
And that's why when we tell, मेरा बच्चा बहुत फोन देखता है, probably आप भी बहुत फोन देखते हो इसीलिए. So आप कम करेंगे. And I'm not talking about older children. Older children, then they start developing their own things. But the youngest ones, at least at that age, if you explain to them and if you show them different way of doing things, they are ready to do it. And they always learn the bad things faster than the good things. It's also a fact.
Because it's easier to
I think
learn.
so. I think so.
Yeah.
Because, and that's not just with younger kids, also
With
older kids.
everybody. Yeah.
And even with us, because it's easier to do that.
Yeah.
And I think with older ones or with us, I think it's also, we feel it's easier to shock others into that.
That is true.
Probably.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about it. I'm
No,
just saying.
yeah, even
Probably.
yes. Yeah.
Subconscious mind, I don't know how it works
Yeah.
because I'm not an expert on it, but probably that is the reason
Yeah.
if you think about it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think what helps, and I'm not saying I'm the best person, we are learning every day. Every day we learn, we do things. We cannot do what we are doing if we don't learn on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So unless we make learning as part of, as teachers or anyone,
Yeah.
anywhere we are, if we don't make learning as part of our everyday things, whatever we would want to learn, I'm not saying you should be learning only a certain kind of thing,
Yeah.
whatever you're interested in.
Yeah.
So you can get better on that, and you can get better. You can still know things that you did not know the
Yeah.
previous day.
That is true.
There's so many things to know about, so many things to do.
Yeah.
That's how we have built up, because where we started and what we are doing today, we have built up over a period of time by observing, by looking at what others are doing, picking up whatever was good, reading about a lot of things,
Yeah.
learning about new practices, and trying to implement as many as we could.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we're doing everything. We could do so much more. There's so much more to do.
Yeah.
Everywhere. Where we are trying our level best to get the best of whatever we can get. We can forward to others in terms of imparting and learning or assisted learning or whichever we would want to call. But it is always an ongoing process.
Yeah.
It's not that what I did today will be applicable in 2026 also.
True.
So 2026 will be a different year with new learnings, new processes. Something new will come up.
Yeah.
Something new. And today's children have so much more opportunities in terms of what they can do later in their life. With AI coming, negatives, yes, but there are a lot of positives.
Yeah.
They learn better, they'll be able to learn better. So maybe at that age, they can't look at the screen, but teachers can. Yeah. Teachers can look at screen, look at new things, learn from others.
Yeah.
Why not? If a lot of stuff is available, and I'm not just looking at videos and doing what they're making new videos, but also new ways of doing things. As you start looking at things, a lot of things come to your mind also. It's not that you can't make things up, but that can happen only if you're looking around with your eyes wide open. That's how children learn. That's how we also should learn.
Of course.
And if we do as people who are educating others, I think eyes wide open are the best way, because the more we learn, and learning is not just getting your degrees, learning is learning smaller things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like even my parents always used to say there are two things that you always do in life. One is always be curious. Second is always try to be the better version of yourself every day.
Yeah, that's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
I think we all learn with time. That doesn't happen. When we were out of college, we thought we knew everything.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely everything.
Yes.
We were smart people.
Yeah.
And with degrees.
Yeah.
Which in those days not too many people had, and we were like, oh
We
my god,
flaunted.
we are such smart people.
Yeah.
And then you look at then you see, and you're like, you're one minuscule thing somewhere, which is not even very important. So then you start calming down. Then again you feel, oh, next burst. With time, when I meet up with my team also, there are so many times I say the younger me would have reacted in a much more agitated, more aggressive to deal with certain situations. Older me at times would say, it's okay, that's how life is. So
yes,
that happens.
absolutely.
With time.
Yeah.
It's not something that we learn in a day, but we can start, we can help. What I'm telling today did not happen when I started. Even when we started, we were just trying to figure out what was happening. And with time, we have learned, we are still learning. It's a process, as I said earlier. So it will help.
Right.
for us, for everyone else around us. So that's the only thing.
Yeah. So, ma'am,
Like to say.
what are your next plans for Happy Bee?
Not just for Happy Bee. It's just that
Yeah.
we want to do this.
Yeah.
We wouldn't mind if others want to join us and
Okay.
do this with us.
Okay.
Maybe somewhere else, if they
Hmm.
feel that we are doing something different and they would love, we would love to help them out,
Yeah.
train them. But as where we are, we would hope that more people join us,
Yeah. Yeah.
get their children to us, because there are so many times they come to us after 2 years of schooling elsewhere and say, Aap lenge. And you have to tell them, why didn't you come earlier?
Yeah.
But as of today, we feel that we are in that space where we can do so much more.
Hmm.
But for that, so much more, we also need more people to come to
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
It cannot happen on its own.
Yeah. That is true.
Nothing happens one way, it has to be a two-way thing.
Yeah.
So we are hoping with new guidelines and everything, people turn up more.
Yeah.
Let's see.
This brings us to the end of the podcast. It was great talking to you.
Yeah, it was. I
And
really liked it.
and uh, and it actually made me very nostalgic. It sent me back to my school days and what all we did. Yeah, it was, and all the books that I've read, all the quotations that, yeah, education and here and there. So I could relate to a lot of things that you said, and I learned a lot. There's certain things that you said that will always remain with me. One is the equal opportunities, and there's another thing that you said that um, the difference in a child should not be the only thing that is left in them.
Yeah.
So that will stick with me. Like, we should not highlight the difference so much that we only keep talking about the difference, but not about whatever else the child is about.
Yes.
So that will stick with me, and I learned a lot. Thank you so much, ma'am, for this.
Thank you so much for calling me.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.